Welcome back to Northeast Current. I am now joined by Showcase Theater, as theater continues to abound in northeastern Pennsylvania. Paul Winarski, president of Showcase, and Stephen Stylinski, star of an upcoming production. As you balk at the word star.
Well, cast.
Well, cast, yes. And the show is Clarence Darrow. And I'm assuming that's also the character that you're playing.
That's the only one that's there. Yes.
All right. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, basically the play is based upon a book, Clarence Darrow for the Defense, by Irving Stone.
Mm-hmm.
It's Clarence Darrow talking about his life. Now, in the original, which was Henry Fonda, he came out and reminisced about his life. We set it up so that Clarence Darrow is older and reading in his apartment and visited by friends. And then he talks to them and reminisces about his life. As a lawyer, growing up, talking about his father, his background a little bit. And then as a lawyer, what formed him in his outlook on life, which formed him as a lawyer. And talked about some of his more famous, well-known, and some not well-known cases that were very important and pivotal in this country, including one that was very important in the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area. And that, I think, is part of the turning point in this country regarding the way people were dealt with between management and labor, racial issues, things of that sort, things that have shaped us to where we are now. And not that we're finished by any stretch of the imagination, but we are in the progress.
So is it all historical fact, or is it history with some liberties taken?
Well, there are a couple of liberties taken, and one that I can think of offhand is the second act opens where he's talking about continuation of a trial that finishes the first act. He's now accused of jury tampering, bribing a jury, and he tells how his wife, Ruby, was with him the entire time. Now, I read in some of the transcripts that are available on the internet that she, at some point, had a nervous breakdown and went to bed for quite a while. Now, he also talks about how his trial lasted for 3 months. In actual fact, it lasted about 2 years.
Wow.
There was a great deal of preparation involved. It lasted a year and a half, a year and 3/4, and then the 3 months of the actual trial itself. That did happen that way, but there was a lot more to it than that. And when Henry Fonda played it, he played it very much more confidently and much stronger. In the book, Clarence Darrow for the Defense, he was not that strong. He had a great deal of emotional difficulty dealing with it, a great deal of emotional difficulty having been devastated and having his honor and his integrity questioned and beaten to a point where even his friends didn't believe he wasn't innocent. Didn't believe he was innocent.
Wasn't it?
I knew what you meant.
I knew it was one of those. So we tried taking a different route a little bit and portraying that sort of emotion more, his own disappointment in what was happening, the anger and pain that he felt by being not ridiculed, vilified. And afterwards, when in the scene after that particular trial, he goes back to Chicago and tried to get the feeling of a disappointment and that nothing happened the way it should have been in an ideal universe, that sort of thing. For instance, none of his previous clients ever came back to him again. So he had to start from scratch all over again. But he did, and that's how it progressed on from there.
So you are the cast, which will make for an exciting cast party.
Well, it's not just that, but I can rehearse anywhere. I can call the cast up,
true.
and I can go into the shower, and I can start my rehearsals, and I can start my rehearsals on the way to work. I can start my rehearsals on the way to the theater. On the way
And
to
your
anywhere else.
illustrious director.
It's a totally different experience working on a one-man show.
I could imagine. Now, Paul, about maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, over the phone, you told me about doing this show, and you kind of told me how it came about and how you made the decision to do it. So I'm going to ask you to retell that, if you remember what you actually said to me.
Sure. Well, I know the basics.
Okay.
It's a show that I had loved for a long time, and I never thought of doing a one-man show as a director. Stephen comes up to me after a local performance I'd come to see him in and asked me if I'd be interested in directing him in the show. which is the first time I've ever had an actor approach me as a director to direct a particular production. And I wouldn't have taken it if A, I didn't love the show, B, I didn't think the actor was suited, and you couldn't find a more suitable actor to play Clarence Darrow in the entire area. And I don't say things like that lightly. He had probably done about 15 years of research since he saw Fonda do it, had wanted to do the show seriously for, what, about 5 years?
Oh, for a lot longer than that.
Okay.
Right?
And he just came with such a knowledge of the character, and I thought, why not? We need to put something in our April space. We have nothing going on in April. It kind of fell into my lap. It was a project where the actor, the director, and the venue were all in unison.
That doesn't happen terribly often.
No, it doesn't.
So what has it been like as your first experience directing a one-man show?
It's hardly like you're directing at all.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about the experience is Steve and I get together, we run the show, and we basically talk about this man. We create this character together. He brings his viewpoints. I bring my directorial interpretation of what he's doing. We meet in the middle. We banter back and forth sometimes about a single line.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
And it's more of a character study than an actual director-actor relationship. It's just two people working on discovering this man and revealing him to the public.
What have you discovered? Anything that you didn't expect to discover about the character, about the show, about yourself, about your cast?
I've discovered one thing about Darrow. Love him or hate him, and he's been a personal hero of mine as well. Mm-hmm. The man had an absolute conviction in himself. No matter what anyone else thought, his deep-rooted belief, his just affinity of self was so great that the few times that he did question it, it really threw him for a loop. And, he doesn't make excuses. And he's the type of person that more people should follow. If everyone had the integrity of character as Clarence Darrow had, the world would probably be a much more rational place, if
So
not
if
a
everybody
better
comes
one.
to see this show, the world will be a better place.
I've always said so.
Yes.
Do that.
What kind of discoveries have you made throughout this process? Other than realizing a dream of playing this role.
Well, it was not just that. I remember back when I was in high school, junior high school, we all studied our versions of history. And for me, it always seemed as if these people who they talked about, and talk about people, events, were all larger than life. It's like there's a mystical island somewhere, and presidents are born there and transported somewhere over here. Things of that sort. And in actual fact, great things happen by accident. Mm-hmm. People who achieve greatness sometimes happen by accident. And we talked about this once, that if Darrow had bought a house in Ashtabula, Ohio, he would never become this famous lawyer, possibly. I think it was also mentioned in the book, Darrow for the Defense. There's a lot of things in everyone's life that happen from an interaction, and you do something where your life changes or you change someone else's life. And that does happen. And people who are famous, world famous, happen by accident, and they're just the person next door. Mm-hmm. They're just your brothers, cousins, sisters, aunts, uncles, neighbors, the neighbor's postman. I mean, all these sorts of things, they just happen that way. And they're people. And history should be more taught more, I need an English major.
We know what you mean.
as stories about people. When I went to Gettysburg once, the park rangers there were people who told stories about the human side of a pivotal battle in the Civil War. It's not dates, it's not just vague names. These were people, and they had their own human stories. They were the good, the bad, and the ugly, quite literally. And they did great things and they did horrible things. But by the same token, they were still people.
It's like Shakespeare said, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them.
It's amazing what we see and what we open our eyes to when we do look at the human side of people. We don't, you're right, historical figures, we don't often look at the human side. No. Sometimes the person walking down the street, we don't necessarily see the human side of. So this must have been a great study even of just human nature.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So many people look at the famous figures of history as icons. And I've always tried to debunk that in anything I direct that deals with historic fact. And I think we're at the point with Darrow. Steve has become Darrow, Darrow has become part of Steve, and he is just talking to us. If you come to see the show, you won't see Steve Stylinski playing Clarence Darrow. You will see, the seasoned lawyer talking to his friends. And that's what we've tried to achieve from day one.
And we open April the 5th.
April
Friday.
5th, this coming Friday.
Dun, 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 dun.
Friday and Saturday at 8 p.m. And the following week, Friday and Saturday the 12th and 13th at 8 p.m.
And tickets, of course, 654-2555.
Yes.
Information is online, showcasetheater.tripod.com.
Showcase Theater, theater.tripod.com.
Or, of course, you can always send us an email here at anycurrent@paxemail.com if you want more information about what's going on. What else is up and coming? That's a loaded question because I have a list in front of me.
Yes, we've got our new season planned. We are opening with a revival of our successful production of Picasso at the Le Pan Agile. Greg Corin is restaging the production with the original cast.
The entire original cast?
Entire
is back.
original cast.
Fantastic.
Jason Sherry, Jack Evans, Dawn Winarski, Ellen O'Brien, myself, Stephen Lewis, Richard Dries, and David Strumsky, and Warren Rosengrant. And that opens September 13th. Our official season begins in November with The Glass Menagerie, and Stephen Lewis is directing Menagerie. January of 2003, I'm directing the area debut of the Rocky Horror Show, with special midnight performances to be announced as well. And Greg Corin's directing Breaking Legs, a mafia comedy, in March. And we're closing the season with Arthur Miller's The Price, directed by Art Walsh, in May.
Sounds like a fantastic season coming up. We're just about out of time, gentlemen. Thank you very much for stopping in this morning.
Thanks, John.
Rolling out of bed at 6 a.m. We appreciate it. So again, it's Showcase Theater. Clarence Darrow is going on April 5th through the 13th. 654-2555 for details. That's going to wrap it up for us. So until next week, for the entire PAX TV team, I'm John Baldino. Good morning.